Have you ever felt that the day is over and you don't even have the strength to take a breath? That you have given all of yourself to others piece by piece to the last drop and there is nothing left for yourself? This habit of being good, of being convenient for everyone. How much does it really cost you? To understand the mechanism of this paralysis of the soul, we must turn to its most precise cartographer. Carl Jung called this ideal, socially approved mask that we wear for others the persona. And it was he who described the enormous, invisible price we pay when we forget that there is a living face beneath the mask. Over the next hour, we will not just analyze this problem, we will decipher its hidden code. You will understand why you voluntarily give away your energy. You will learn exactly which part of your soul you are sacrificing for the sake of approval. And, most importantly, you will see a clear path to reclaim this energy for yourself. If you are ready to terminate this unfavorable contract with the world, then our journey inward begins, right now. Let's slow down for a moment and listen to that special silence that comes at the end of the day. Not the external silence of an empty house, but the internal one. To that hollow echo in your chest where just a few hours ago, life was bustling. This is that quiet, deep fatigue. It's not like the pleasant ache in your muscles after a long walk. This is a fatigue not from tasks, but from the continuous effort of being. Being an attentive son. Being an understanding friend. Being a reliable colleague. Being a cheerful conversationalist. The smile you wore all day suddenly feels like a heavy frozen mask, and underneath it, the muscles of your face ache with a tension you didn't even know was there. Inside you, a highly complex mechanism works nonstop, an internal calculator that weighs every word before you say it. It constantly asks questions. How will this sound? Will this offend someone? What will they think of me if I refuse? Which version of myself do I need to show now to maintain this fragile harmony? This mechanism has been running for so long that you no longer notice its hum. You only notice its consequence, a zero balance in your energy account by evening. You are a perfectly tuned instrument, a precious violin on which every passerby can play their tune. Everyone except you. You were the life of the party, but you came home completely empty. You solved someone else's problem, but you don't have the strength to even think about your own. Your energy is a currency that you hand out to every asker, to every beggar in spirit, leaving yourself completely hungry at the end of the day. And perhaps, listening to this, you feel a familiar pang of shame, the voice of the inner critic whispering that you are just weak, spineless, that you are a hypocrite. It is here, at this point of self-blame, that we must stop. And if you recognize yourself in this description, know this: you are not weak. You are not a hypocrite. You are a master of survival. You learn this art to be convenient, to be good, to be obliging, because once, a long time ago, perhaps in your earliest childhood, your soul understood that this was the safest and maybe the only way to receive love and acceptance. It was not a mistake. It was a strategy, a brilliant in its simplicity survival strategy for the soul in a world that seemed unsafe. You became a perfect seismograph, detecting the slightest tremors in others' moods, and learned to be exactly who you needed to be to prevent an earthquake of anger, disappointment, or rejection. This talent, honed to perfection, was your shield. But what happens when the battle is over and the soldier continues to wear heavy armor? It doesn't protect, it exhausts. What drains you today once saved your life? Your problem is not a problem at all. It is a talent that has exhausted itself. But what happens when a survival strategy created for the past continues to operate in the present? It ceases to protect. It begins to suffocate. But what if I told you that this debilitating fatigue is not a curse, but a gift? That it is not proof of your inadequacy, but a symptom of your awakening health? That it is not a sign of you being broken, but the voice of your true essence, which has been drowned out for so long by the noise of others' expectations that now it has to scream in the language of total exhaustion for you to finally hear it? This voice does not accuse. It calls out, and it says enough. The survival contract has been fulfilled with distinction. You survived. But you have forgotten for what. It is time to sign a contract for life. This total depletion of energy is not your enemy. It is your most faithful messenger, who has broken through all the cordons of your shoulds and musts to deliver a message from the very depths of your being. This message is written in the language of apathy and irritation, but its content is a call to freedom. Your pain is not a sign of being broken. It is the compass of your soul, desperately trying to point you toward a new path, the path to yourself. And to understand the language of this voice and the terms of the new contract for life, we must first take a ruthlessly honest look at the old contract you signed without even realizing it, the contract for survival. This contract is woven into the very fabric of our culture, our upbringing, our deepest fears. It is called the myth of the good person. The myth that being convenient is a virtue and your own needs are selfishness. And in the next part of our journey, we will put this myth on the surgical table. We will not judge it, we will dissect it. Layer by layer, we will remove its veils of nobility to see its true mechanism. A mechanism that reliably siphons your life energy in exchange for the illusion of security. This is a necessary, sober, and liberating step. Before building something new, we must see the architecture of our prison. So, as we promised, let's begin to dissect the myth of the good person. And we'll start with those noble stories you likely tell yourselves to explain this constant internal bleeding of energy. Perhaps you tell yourself, I'm just a very sensitive person. I'm an empath. I physically feel the pain of others, so I can't help but help. Or, it's just my nature. I'm an altruist. I get genuine joy from giving, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or maybe your explanation is more pragmatic. I just hate conflict. It's easier to agree once than to get into long, exhausting arguments that will take even more energy. And of course, the most popular self-deception of the modern world. I just need to learn time management. I need to plan better to have time for work, for helping others, and for myself. All of this sounds very noble. These are honorary titles we give ourselves to make sense of our exhaustion. But all these explanations have one fundamental, fatal flaw. They describe what you do, but they are silent about why you do it. They describe your behavior, but not the invisible engine, the internal compulsion that forces you to behave this way, even when it goes against your own interests. It's like trying to fix a leaking pipe by constantly and masterfully wiping up the puddle on the floor. You don't go into the wall to find the leak. Instead, you become a world expert on wiping up puddles. You buy the best rags, study absorption techniques, create a cleaning schedule. You might even take pride in how efficiently you manage this puddle, but the leak doesn't stop. Your fatigue, your apathy, this is the puddle on the floor, and your attempts to manage time better or be more positive are the masterful wiping of this puddle. You are fighting the effect, ignoring the source of the leak. You have become a virtuoso manager of consequences, while the true cause of your exhaustion, the leak itself, remains untouched, hidden in the darkness of the wall of your subconscious. If the old explanations are just wiping up the puddle, then let's now look into the accounting of your soul. Imagine your life energy as a bank account. This is not just a metaphor, it's a working model. Assets come into this account. Hours of deep sleep, sincere laughter, time spent alone with a good book, a sense of satisfaction from a job well done, true intimacy with another person. These are all deposits that replenish your balance. And in this context, your chronic fatigue is not the problem itself. It is merely an honest, impartial notification from your internal bank that your account has a zero or even a negative balance. It's the red light on the dashboard that says, "Warning, critically low fuel level." Your apathy, your irritation, your inability to feel joy, these are not your enemies or signs of your defect. They are just an honest bank statement showing that you have been living on energy credit for too long. And your habit of being good, your obliging nature, your desire to smooth over all the rough edges, this is that automatic unauthorized payment. It's a subscription you never consciously signed up for, but which daily, hourly withdraws the most expensive currency from your account: your energy, your time, and your authenticity. Every time you say yes while thinking no, a transaction occurs. Every time you smile while suppressing anger, a withdrawal is made. Every time you do something for another out of fear, not love, your account empties. And this is where the main shift in perception happens. The question is not how to be less tired. That's like asking how to make the bank stop sending you debt notifications. The question is different. Who set up these automatic withdrawals and on what terms? Who is the invisible banker who has direct access to your account and disposes of your assets without your knowledge? We stop treating the symptom, fatigue, and we start investigating the cause, the unconscious contract for approval. Now that we have this model of a mental bank, it's time for the first, perhaps most important, audit. We need to find out who is the main beneficiary, the main recipient of these automatic withdrawals from your account. What I am about to suggest is not just an interactive element. It is an invitation to turn passive listening into an active act of self-discovery. This is the moment where our shared journey becomes your personal one. Therefore, I want to ask you to treat this with the same seriousness a doctor treats making a diagnosis. And now I will ask you to do something important. In a moment, pause this video, not for 5 seconds. Find a minute for silence around you. Close your eyes if that's more comfortable for you. Take one deep breath in and out. And ask yourself just one brutally honest question. Whose disapproval do I fear the most? Don't analyze. Don't try to find the right answer. Don't think for long. Just allow the first image, the first name or face to surface from the depths. It could be your father or mother, whose stern gaze you still feel on you, your partner, whose disappointment is unbearable to you, a boss on whose evaluation your peace of mind depends. It might even be an abstract, faceless group like people or colleagues. Trust whatever comes first. Do it now. And now that you're back, that image you saw, remember it. This person, living or deceased, real or composite, is the main shareholder of your internal bank. This is the inner critic whose voice sounds in your head. This is the judge whose verdict you so desperately try to avoid. Every concession you make, every no you swallow, every effort to be good is a transfer to their account, a transfer of your life force. This image, which surfaced from the depths in a moment of silence, is the invisible owner of the contract you are still paying for. And realizing this is the first step toward renegotiating that contract. Whoever this main shareholder in your life may be, a real person or a composite image, know this. The mechanism that makes you fear their disapproval is not your personal mistake or quirk. It is a fundamental universal drama of the human psyche. And this drama has a name given to it by the greatest cartographer of the soul of the 20th century. To understand the architecture of this inner prison, we must turn to Carl Gustav Jung. He was not just a psychologist, he was an explorer of the depths who descended into the collective unconscious of humanity and returned with a map. And on this map, he named one of the key features, the persona. The word persona in Latin means mask, the mask worn by actors in ancient theater to signify their role. For Jung, the persona is our social interface. It is the version of ourselves that we present to the world to be understood and accepted. It is the role of the competent professional at work, the loving parent at home, the witty friend in a group. And there is nothing wrong with this. The persona is an absolutely necessary and healthy tool for navigating the complex social world. It protects our vulnerable inner essence from the harsh external environment, just as a spacesuit protects an astronaut in open space. But here is where the tragedy begins. The tragedy of identification. It happens the moment we wear the mask for so long that we forget it is a mask. When we start to believe that we are this role. When an actor on stage merges so completely with his character that upon returning to the dressing room, he can no longer remove his makeup and continues to act, even when alone. He forgets what his real face looks like. And in this very moment of forgetting, your most useful tool begins to silently transform into your most perfect prison. The persona, from being our ambassador to the outside world, turns into a jailer who dictates what we are allowed to feel, think, and do so as not to disrupt the image. And it is on maintaining the walls of this prison that all your life energy is spent. But if the persona is the jailer, then who is the prisoner? To answer this question, Jung invites us to descend from the shining reception halls of our inner palace into its deepest, darkest, and forgotten dungeons. He asks us to imagine our psyche not as a single entity, but as a vast, living kingdom. On the border of this kingdom, in its embassies and at diplomatic receptions, your Minister of Foreign Affairs rules. This is your persona. He is impeccably dressed, his speech is measured, his smile is a perfectly calibrated tool for achieving agreement. His main and only task is to represent your kingdom to the outside world in the best possible light. He forms alliances, friendships, signs trade agreements, work contracts, and most importantly, maintains the image of your kingdom as civilized, kind, reliable, and strong. He is a master of protocol and etiquette. He knows what to say, how to look, and what to do to gain approval and avoid conflict with other kingdoms. But in every kingdom, there is not only a throne room, there are also dungeons. And in the deepest tower of your inner castle, another powerful figure languishes in confinement. This is not just a prisoner. This is the exiled, disgraced, but legitimate twin brother of the king. Jung called this figure the shadow. The shadow is everything that was banished from the throne room as unacceptable for the bright image of your kingdom. It was exiled to the dungeon not because it was evil, but because it was inconvenient. In the shadow lives your healthy primal anger that says, "My boundaries have been violated." There lives your selfishness, which is actually the instinct for self-preservation and whispers, "I need rest, I need resources." In the shadow are hidden your unrefined ambitions, your raw sexuality, your right to be lazy, your thunderous, liberating no. The shadow is not evil. It is your life force in its wildest, unfiltered form. And this is where the civil war that exhausts you begins. When you completely identify with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, his main internal task becomes the suppression of the shadow, a huge part of your kingdom's treasury, your finite psychic energy. Instead of going to build roads, universities, and gardens, that is, to development, creativity, and joy, goes to strengthening the prison walls, to hiring more guards, defense mechanisms, to silencing the prisoner's voice, suppression of feelings. Your energy does not disappear. It is redirected to maintaining this internal gulag. And the greatest irony is that the more successful your Minister of Foreign Affairs is, the more applause he receives on the international stage. The poorer and hungrier the kingdom itself becomes, exhausted by this endless internal war. Your fatigue is an economic report on the bankruptcy of the treasury, spent on fighting yourself. This battle between the minister and his exiled brother is not an abstraction. It unfolds every day in millions of lives, in the silence of kitchens and the hum of offices. Let's see what it looks like in the example of one of them. Meet Emily. From the outside, Emily's life is a role model. Her house smells of fresh baking, her children are always neatly dressed, her husband proudly calls her his rock. At work, she is that colleague who will uncomplainingly take over your project before a deadline, because you have a family and I can handle it. She is that friend you can call at 2 in the morning to vent, and she will listen, nodding gently, even if she has to get up at 6. Her persona is the caring one. It is honed to perfection, her signature phrase spoken with an unfailingly warm smile. It's no trouble at all. But there is another Emily, the one no one sees, and the one she herself is desperately afraid to acknowledge. This is the Emily who wakes up at 3 in the morning with a throbbing migraine, a migraine that doctors attribute to stress, but which is actually the unshed cry of her suppressed anger. This is the Emily who dreams not of pastoral landscapes, but of burning forests and wild free animals, breaking their chains and running away. Dreams in which her shadow desperately tries to remind her of its power and fury. Sometimes, scrolling through her social media feed, she feels a sudden burning pang of envy for a friend who dropped everything and went to the mountains alone. She immediately shames herself for this selfishness, not understanding that she envies not the mountains, but the freedom. The climax comes on a Friday evening. Emily is blowing up balloons for her 7-year-old son's birthday party, which is tomorrow. She is happy. At that moment, her boss calls. There is panic in his voice. An important client has fallen through, and the entire presentation needs to be redone by tomorrow morning. Emily, I know it's your day off, your son's birthday, but you're the only one who can save us. Her Minister of Foreign Affairs immediately takes the podium. He knows the protocol. He knows what a good employee and a reliable person should say. And Emily hears her own voice, polite and calm, say, "Of course, Mark, no problem. I understand completely. I'll be at the office at 9. Her yes sounded calm and confident over the phone. But inside her soul, at that moment, something collapsed with a deafening crash. It was not fatigue. It was an icy, ringing emptiness. For the first time in her life, her goodness did not bring her even a drop of self-respect. Only the cold, clear realization that she had been robbed and that she herself had handed the robber the keys to the safe. She slowly lowered the phone. The air in the room, which a minute ago smelled of celebration, suddenly became stuffy and lifeless. The bright balloon in her hand seemed like a mockery. It was the moment of bankruptcy for her mental account. The illusion that her sacrifice was a virtue crumbled to dust, leaving behind only one question. Who am I if I am not the one who helps everyone? And in that icy emptiness, amidst the party balloons, Emily for the first time faced the truth of her internal bankruptcy. And now let's look in your mirror. Because Emily's story is not a story about someone else. It is a metaphor told so that you can see yourself. Emily's migraine is your chronic fatigue that comes on for no apparent reason. It is your back pain, your lump in your throat, any physical symptom that is the last desperate argument of your body begging you to stop. Her dreams of fires and wild animals are your dull, causeless irritation that suddenly flares up in traffic or in line at the store. It is your sudden melancholy when you watch a movie about brave adventurers. It is every pang of envy you feel towards people who live incorrectly, but somehow freely. This is your shadow which cannot reach you during the day and therefore sends you its fiery letters at night. Her agreement to work on her child's birthday is every time you said yes, when your entire being, every cell in your body screamed no. It's that meeting you went to, canceling your rest. It's that loan you gave, knowing you wouldn't get it back. It's that uncomfortable conversation you avoided. Paying for your silence with your self-respect. Your persona may not be called the caring one. Perhaps its name is the perfect employee who never leaves work on time and answers emails at midnight. Perhaps it is the understanding friend who is always ready to listen but never talks about their own problems so as not to burden others. Maybe it's the strong man who was taught from childhood that he has no right to weakness, tears, or doubts. Or the spiritual person who does not allow themselves base feelings like anger or jealousy. The name of your mask may be different, but the price you pay for wearing it is written in the same currency, your authentic life force. The mechanics of exhaustion are exactly the same. Your energy is not spent on work or children or helping friends. It is spent on maintaining the facade, on the continuous, grueling effort to be who you are expected to be, on the war with your shadow where your real wants and your sacred no's live, and your mental account, just like Emily's, is inexorably approaching zero. Your fatigue is simply the sound of the siren announcing the collapse of your internal bank. So we have understood that we are at war with an invisible, exiled part of ourselves. But how do we see what is so carefully hidden in the dungeons? How do we discern the face of the one we ourselves have imprisoned? Jung left us a brilliantly simple key that does not require long years of analysis. This key is other people. He taught that what we cannot or do not want to see in ourselves, we see with astonishing, painful clarity in others. The psyche does not tolerate blind spots. And if some important part of ourselves is exiled to the shadow, the psyche will do everything to make us meet it. It will project this quality onto those around us, like a movie projector projects an image onto a blank screen. The people around you are mirrors, and what evokes the strongest, most irrational emotional reaction in you is not their portrait, but your own forgotten self-portrait. And now I will ask you for a second act of courage on our path. Again, find a moment of silence. Again, take a deep breath. And ask yourself the next question. What quality do I most condemn, or what irrationally irritates me in other people? It could be selfishness, laziness, loudness, excessive directness, drama and constant complaining, weakness, or conversely, self-confidence that you call arrogance. Don't rush. Allow that very quality to surface that makes you inwardly cringe or boil with indignation when you encounter it. The answer that came to you is not just a coincidence. It is a treasure map, pointing to where the gold of your shadow is buried. Jung argued that it is precisely in the qualities that we most fiercely reject in others that a huge part of our suppressed power is hidden. If you are driven mad by someone else's selfishness, perhaps your healthy ability to care for yourself and your needs is languishing in your shadow. If you despise laziness, your shadow likely holds your right to rest, to pause, to be without achieving. If you are irritated by someone else's directness, your own unspoken truth and the courage to say no are probably locked in your shadow. We condemn in others not the quality itself, but the freedom with which they allow themselves to express it. A freedom we have denied ourselves. I am not asking you to write this quality in the comments. The dungeons of our soul are a personal and sacred space. But if this question has revealed something important to you, if in this mirror you have seen a vague but recognizable outline for a moment, I invite you to share not the quality itself, but the act of your realization. Write a simple phrase in the comments. I saw my shadow. This will be our silent sign of understanding, a signal to the hundreds of other seekers reading these lines that they are not alone in their discovery. It will be a quiet but powerful declaration of your courage to look where most are afraid to look. Perhaps after you have looked into your shadow, after you have named the one whose disapproval you fear, you felt fear or shame. This is a natural reaction. We spend our whole lives learning to hide these parts of ourselves, and meeting them face to face feels like breaking a sacred taboo. But it is here, in this frightening territory, that the real work begins. It is here that we must perform the greatest alchemical revolution in perception. Your fatigue is not an enemy to be defeated. It is your most faithful ally. Your apathy is not a disease to be cured. It is your wisest teacher. Every bout of dull irritation, every wave of inexplicable melancholy, is not a system failure. It is the impeccably working compass of your soul, a compass whose needle unerringly points to the same spot on your inner map. Here, this is where you betrayed yourself. This is a message from your shadow, which can no longer remain silent in the dungeon. It is beating on the walls of your prison in the language of psychosomatics and apathy, and its message is simple. Pay attention to me. Stop spending the entire kingdom's treasury on keeping me in chains. In me is your strength. In me is your no. In me is your right to live for yourself and not just for others. We are used to treating our negative sides like dirt to be washed away, like weeds to be pulled. But the great alchemists of the spirit, and Jung was one of them, knew this is not dirt, it is prima materia. The primary, chaotic, dark, but precious matter from which gold alone can be created. Your shadow, your anger, your selfishness, your laziness is not trash to be cleaned out. It is lead. And the alchemist's task is not to throw away the lead, but to place it in the vessel of their awareness and begin the great work. To start a dialogue. To ask your anger, what boundaries are you screaming about? To ask your apathy, what meaningless activity are you protecting me from? It is in this process that the transformation of the lead of flaws into the gold of wholeness occurs. You have been trying to get rid of the lead of your fatigue, not understanding that it is precisely within it that all the gold of your future strength is hidden. So stop fighting your symptoms. Start listening to them. They are not a curse. They are your personal guide to the treasures buried in the darkest corners of your soul. But how do you turn this lead into gold? How do you start this dialogue with the one you have held captive for so long? The alchemists knew that the great work happens not in the external world, but inside a hermetically sealed vessel, the Athenor. Your soul is that very vessel, and the first thing we must understand is, The solution is not to burn all bridges, start being rude to people, or declare war on the whole world. Many people, upon first encountering the power of their shadow, make this mistake. They let the pendulum swing to the other side. From an obliging good person, they turn into a cynical truth teller. But this is not liberation. It is just a change of dictator. Yesterday you were ruled by the persona. Today you are ruled by the rebellious shadow. The result is the same. You are still not free. You are still a puppet of one of your parts. The true path lies not in external struggle, but in the quiet, courageous, and deeply personal work that Jung called the integration of the shadow. What does this mean? It means not to become bad, but to become whole. It means to stop being good and start being real. Integration is the act of granting civil rights to the exiled parts of yourself. You, as the wise ruler of your inner kingdom, issue a decree of amnesty. You acknowledge your right to anger when your boundaries are violated. You acknowledge your right to fatigue when your resources are depleted. You acknowledge your right to, I don't want to, without needing to invent 1,000 excuses. You don't let these feelings seize the throne, but you give them a legitimate place at the table of your inner council. It means to stop wasting energy on war and to direct it towards building a bridge between the persona and the shadow. Your Minister of Foreign Affairs must descend into the dungeon and begin negotiations with the exiled brother. He must learn to hear his grumbling and understand that this grumbling contains vital information about the state of the entire kingdom. This does not require aggression. It requires courage. The courage to endure your own anger without lashing out at others. The courage to admit your fatigue and cancel plans. The courage to feel a pang of guilt after saying no and not immediately rush to apologize. It is the courage to meet the real you with all your inconvenient and unattractive parts. The true revolution happens not when you shout no to the world, but when for the first time, in the silence of your soul, you whisper a sincere yes to your own shadow. Yes, you are a part of me too, and I am ready to listen to you. This dialogue with the shadow, this process of integration, does not begin with complex techniques or deep meditations. It begins with a simple but revolutionary act, the act of honest attention, with the act of impartial observation of what is actually happening in the economy of your soul. And for this, we have one very powerful, concrete, and safe tool that I suggest you start using today. I call it the Energy Audit Journal. It doesn't take much time, but it requires absolute honesty. Take a notebook or open the Notes app on your phone, and for the next week, just 7 days, at the end of each day before bed, write down the answers to just 3 questions. Do this without judgment, without self-flagellation. Not as a judge, but as a scientist who is simply collecting data for an important study. First question, what event, conversation, or action gave me energy today? At what moment did I feel a surge of strength, inspiration, joy, or calm? Was it a walk alone? A conversation with a specific friend? 15 minutes spent on a hobby? Write it down. Second question, what event, conversation, or action took energy from me today? After what did I feel drained, irritated, or overly tired? Was it a call from a specific relative? Agreeing to extra work? Trying to meet someone's expectations at a meeting? Be very specific. And the third most important question, at what moment today did I want to say no but said yes? It could be something big or something tiny. Declining an invitation but going anyway. Agreeing with an opinion you don't share. Taking on someone else's responsibility. Remember that moment and just record it. The purpose of this exercise is not to reproach yourself. The purpose is to collect data. You stop being a victim of your fatigue and become an impartial researcher of your own energy. After just a few days, you will start to see patterns. You will see which people and situations are deposits for you and which are unauthorized withdrawals. You will see how often your yes to others is a treacherous no to yourself. This journal will become your personal map on which the places where you lose yourself daily will be marked in red ink. You will make the unconscious energy leaks visible, and what is visible ceases to be all-powerful. It becomes manageable. This is the first practical step toward becoming a conscious master of your energy. And when you start keeping this journal, when you see with your own eyes the black and white evidence of where and to whom you are giving away your life, you will inevitably face a choice between the familiar comfort of self-sacrifice and the frightening freedom of self-respect. And in that moment of choice, when the old fear of being bad or selfish rears its head, I ask you to remember one fundamental, liberating truth. The power to say no is born not from selfishness, but from a deep, resounding yes to yourself. It is a yes to your right to rest when your body and soul are begging for peace. It is a yes to your time, the only non-renewable resource you have. It is a yes to your true values, which you have betrayed for so long in favor of others' priorities. It is a yes to your inner world, which has a right to silence and protection from intrusion. Every no you say to the outside world out of self-respect is the loudest yes you can say to your own soul. We were taught that putting ourselves first is selfish. But this is one of the most destructive ideas embedded in our culture. To stop paying for others' approval is not an act of aggression. It is an act of the greatest self-respect. You are not building a wall to declare war on your neighbor. You are putting up a beautiful, clear fence to mark the boundaries of your garden, where you and only you decide what will grow. This is not an attack. This is sovereignty. And know that you are not breaking relationships with others. You are stopping playing a role in them. You are offering them something far more valuable than your mask, your authenticity. You are starting to build honest, adult relationships with yourself. And this inevitably cleanses your social field as well. Some relationships built solely on your obliging nature may not withstand this test of honesty. And that is not a tragedy, it is healing. But those relationships based on mutual respect will only become deeper and stronger, because it is impossible to build a healthy relationship with another without having a healthy relationship with yourself. We have come a long way in this hour. From a vague feeling of quiet exhaustion to a dazzling encounter with the shadow parts of our soul. We have descended into the dungeons of the psyche and risen to awareness. And now, standing at the summit of this path, let's look at the entire landscape we have traversed and formulate the main crystal-clear conclusion of this journey. It sounds like a paradox, but it holds the entire essence. The price of a perfect life is life itself. You worked so hard to build a flawless facade that you forgot to inhabit the house itself. You became a brilliant actor who receives standing ovations but has forgotten how to feel anything when the curtain falls. For years, you paid with your authenticity, your spontaneity, your life force for the illusion of security. You believed that if you were convenient, predictable, and obliging, the world would not touch you, not reject you, not judge you. You sought love from the outside, paying for it with your soul, while your entire inner world was waiting for you to love it first. But true security is not a fortress wall of others' approval that crumbles at a single disapproving glance. True security is an inner core. It is the ability to withstand the storm of someone's disapproval and not fall apart. It is the knowledge that your value is not determined by the applause of the crowd, but is embedded in the very core of your being, and no one can take it from you. That is why your ultimate task is not to destroy your persona. It is a useful and necessary tool. Your task is to become its master, not to be the mask, but to have the mask. And, most importantly, to know how to take it off. To take it off when you come home, to yourself, to the place where you don't need to earn love, to the place where you can just be. This wisdom may seem abstract, but its fruits are very concrete. They sprout in the very fabric of your daily life, changing its taste, color, and scent. Let's take a momentary glimpse into this possible future. Imagine a day when you say no to someone's request. Not a harsh, not an aggressive, but a calm and firm no, coming from a clear understanding of your resources. And after that, there is silence. Silence where there used to be a multi-hour internal monologue of guilt, self-flagellation, and replaying the other person's offense in your head. You just said no, and the world didn't end. And for the first time, you felt not guilt, but freedom. Imagine a conversation in which you honestly and without an apologetic tone Express your opinion, even if it goes against the majority view. You are not frantically scanning the faces of your interlocutors for signs of disapproval. You are not trying to soften every word. You are simply sharing your point of view, giving the other person the full right to disagree with it. And you feel not fear, but your own integrity. And finally, imagine an evening, the very evening that used to be a symbol of your exhaustion. But now there is energy in it. Energy for the book you've long wanted to read, for the hobby that lights you up from within, for a sincere, not forced, conversation with loved ones. Not because you should be a good partner or develop yourself, but because you genuinely want to. This is not a fantasy. This is not magic. This is the direct, logical result of reclaiming your energy for yourself. It is a portrait of a life in which you stopped being fuel for other people's cars and became the driver of your own. And this path you are beginning, you don't have to walk it alone. In fact, you are no longer alone. Before we finish, I want to thank you. Not just for your time and attention. Those words are too superficial for what has happened here. I want to thank you for your courage, for the courage to stay here, to listen without looking away, and to look into those corners of your soul that most people prefer to ignore their entire lives, and for the trust you have placed in this process, in this shared immersion. By taking this step toward yourself, you have joined an invisible but very real community. It is a community of those who have chosen the courage of wholeness instead of the comfort of approval. Those who have felt that the price of a good life has become unbearably high. Everyone who has watched to this point, who has asked themselves honest questions, who has felt a pang of recognition in Emily's story or in the description of their shadow, is part of this silent brotherhood of seekers. We may live in different cities and countries, speak different languages, but we are united by one thing, a common intention to stop paying for illusions with our lives and to begin the journey home, to ourselves. Remember this in moments of doubt. Remember that right now at this very minute, someone else, just like you, is taking their first step. You are not alone on this journey. And so that this feeling of unity and clarity does not dissolve in the flow of daily life, so that this journey has its continuation, I invite you to remain a part of this space. If this exploration was valuable to you, subscribe to continue diving into these depths with us. Your subscription is not just a click, it is your quiet but firm intention to continue this most important conversation, the conversation with your own soul. Every like under this video, every comment with the words "I saw my shadow," is not just numbers for an algorithm. It is a signal to the universe that there are many such seeking souls. It is proof that this work of reclaiming yourself is important and necessary not only for you, it is your way of saying to others who will come here after you, you are not alone. Keep going. But the most important thing I want to ask you to do is far more important than any like or subscription. Please don't just close this video. Don't let this hour turn into another portion of interesting information that will be forgotten by tomorrow morning. Take one insight from it, one thought that resonated with you the most, and carry it through your day-to-day like a precious lamp. Look at your decisions, words, and feelings through the lens of this one thought. Begin your journey to energy sovereignty, not tomorrow, today. Stop paying, start living.